everyone. My name is Elham Fardad, and I am the CEO and founder of the charity Migrant Leaders. I'm really pleased for us to be here today because the Salesforce team have been incredibly collaborative and have supported the Migrant Leaders charity. I'd like to particularly thank Shirley Morrison for really spearheading this particular webinar and delivering her fantastic visualization training. This particular video is going to be sharing the career stories of her three of her wonderful colleagues, and I shall, without further ado, pass the stage to them. Thank you.
And hi everybody. I have put together a little bit of a storyboard of my own career path since I was at university, and I've also wanted to share a couple of things that I have learned throughout my time working, studying, just from friends and things like that. So at the top you'll see a few images that I actually already put together a while back, which I was trying to use to kind of describe what's important to me. So I mentioned climbing to some of the people that were in my group, really important. My family, two photos there. I'm very outdoorsy. I love hiking, I love riding, I love climbing, all sorts of things, and traveling as well. So just a few things that are important to me. And interestingly, I did this whilst we were doing it together just now, and a lot of photos look very similar to my personal photos there. So a little bit about me. I'm from the UK. I grew up in Reading, so south of the UK, and I loved school. Really, really enjoyed my time, probably because my school was very friendly and sociable, but I also really liked learning, and I ended up studying quite hard, getting good grades, and going to university to study zoology, which was a mix of all the things I enjoyed, a little bit of biology, a little bit of chemistry, and a little bit of maths. And the plan was I was going to go on to become a vet because I loved animals and I always wanted to work with them. However, when I was at university, I started going to careers fairs and finding out where you could earn decent money. And interestingly, through university, my goal of where I wanted to go in life kind of lent more towards how could I earn some money so that I could buy a place of my own and live by myself and move out of my family home. So I ended up leaving university and going into technology for IBM, big kind of computer company. And my route in was through software sales. And I joined via the graduate scheme. So you had to have a degree, but they were one of the only graduate schemes that would take any degree. So typically you expect people to have a business degree or a computer science degree or a business analyst degree or something like that. But IBM were open to anybody, which was amazing because zoology typically doesn't transfer into technology. So I joined IBM in 2012 and spent almost 7 years with the company. And I moved around a little bit throughout. From the graduate scheme, I completed it and actually moved from software sales into consulting. So I ended up working more with customers who were making changes to applications that they used. And I learned project management, which was incredible. Never knew that I would like it, but loved the organization, loved how I learned to manage projects and kind of understand that things are always going to change. Scope is going to change. Budgets are going to change. And that was really, really interesting. And after 6.5 years with IBM, I was sort of ready to do something new, but I wasn't quite sure what. And so I decided I'd had enough. I hadn't stopped working really hard since I was at school. So I decided to ask for 6 months off. And I actually took a complete break from work. Wasn't paid, but it was the only way that I could take a break and still have a job to come back to. And I went traveling around Southeast Asia for 5 months, and it was incredible. I had the best time, did all the things that I wanted to do since I was little in terms of traveling. But one of the things that I realized most importantly was I just didn't want to work for IBM anymore. Not because they weren't a great company. I was just ready to do something entirely different. So I spent a lot of time that I was away thinking about where I wanted to work next and who I wanted to work for and what was important and how much I needed to earn, but actually what would I give up in terms of money to actually try something new. And I did a very similar exercise to what Shirley's just walked us through, but it was more of like a grid, and I decided what I liked, what I didn't like, what I wanted and what I didn't want. And I came back from that, joined IBM just to earn a little bit more money, and then decided to apply for jobs elsewhere and got my role at Salesforce. And as I said earlier, I've been here 2 years, and my current role uses quite a lot of things that I learned throughout my previous jobs. And really, I look after Salesforce's customers and make sure they're using things that they've bought from us. And I love it. And it encompasses a lot of things, as I said, that I learned. Lots of organization, lots of the business knowledge that I have, lots of the consulting experience that I had, but just in a different company that aligns, I think, better to what I enjoy. And I realized I've spent a lot of time, so sorry, Shirley, but that's me, and would be very happy to talk more if anybody has any questions.
Thanks, Jo. Thank you so much. I think we're going to jump into Paul because I'm just conscious we're running over, so we'll jump on. Thank you for sharing. Paul, on to yourself, please.
Perfect. So thanks for that, Jo. So yeah, good evening, everybody. So Paul Campbell-Balcombe, if he wasn't in my room. So really, a couple of things that I wanted to pull out to be able to discuss with you this evening was a little bit of a different route, right? I've always tried to be a little bit different than the norm in kind of everything that I do. And so how that kind of manifested was really a little bit early on from school. So I moved into higher education. That looks like a long, long time ago now, looking at those dates. And I actually tried mechanical and electrical engineering first. So the first year of that was all about understanding how electronics worked, how to create things out of metal and do all of that. But I didn't actually really enjoy it very much, and I decided that the next year I wanted to move subject matter over to information technology, and that's where I absolutely found my passion, I would say. Whether that be gadgets and video games and how things work, but educating and learning around business and how business uses technology kind of really it inspired me just because of that learning opportunity and the people that I was around and actually everything that we've gone through on the mood boards today. So actually what that led to was I had the opportunity to go to university, but it came at a point where I deferred for 2 years. So I had my place, but I deferred and then cancelled it because I felt that I needed to move to earning money, really, because there were other things that I wanted to do in my life. So I actually turned down even more education and started in an organization called Progress Software in my career back in '95. And for the first 5 years was internal IT support. So if your printer broke, you would come to me. If you wanted a new laptop, you would come to me. And what that gave me was the skills and the things that I loved around technology, but it also gave me the skills and where I really wanted to get to was being quite sociable and plug into everybody that was in an office, right? So I would have to deal with the leadership of the business. I would have to deal with everybody in the organization. And so one day I asked on the customer facing side of that business what life was like in a customer facing role, and luckily they gave me the opportunity and kind of been doing very similar roles but in different dimensions in different places for quite some time now, but customer facing role in 2000, and then moved from solution engineering into what I'm doing now is leading one of our industries from a product perspective and what we call a go-to-market perspective, which that industry is unsurprisingly the high-tech industry. So that passion for technology has really gone through my education, my early career, and influenced everything up to now where I've got the opportunity to influence back out how we go to market. And really quickly, the three things that I would leave you with of my learnings and what I would say to a younger self: people buy from people. So no matter what you're selling, whether that is a product like we sell at Salesforce, or whether that's yourself as well, if you need to sell yourself for relationships, for getting further into what we saw as a vision board and you feel you like your purpose, people buy from people, so invest in those relationships. Treat employees as an employer, as a customer, and then that will always give you a kind of a good feeling, but it will also help you when things aren't so great as well. Working life's great, but it's not always so great. And how do you cope with that? How do you compartmentalize? And thinking about your employer as a customer means that you're always giving them the best value, and they will always give you more value in return as well, and it will equate to a happier life. and be aware of what drives other people. You know, it can be very tricky out there. There's lots of different viewpoints in the world. There's lots of different approaches to the same subjects, loads of different things. But, you know, if you're always thinking about what drives other people, it means you can always think about other people's feelings, which means you can build really good relationships. And, you know, all of it all comes together with things like your mental health that we talked about earlier. So I'll leave that there. Connect with me on LinkedIn if you scan that scanner. More than happy to have discussions with you.
That's great. Thank you, Paul. Thanks for those learnings. I think, yeah, those definitely resonate with me. Thank you. Great. So on to our last. We've done it a good time too. So thank you, Jo. Thank you, Paul. Ian, you are up, my friend.
I am. Great stuff. Thanks. This does build a little bit. So if I tell you,
I'm here.
Click to the next one, if that's all right, Shirley. So hi, everyone. I'll take you through a little bit about my career history. I started off a chemistry degree. I have to come and chat to Jo later. I didn't realise she grew up in Reading, so I'm going to come and share more stories with you later. But I started out doing a chemistry degree in Bristol in the 90s and kind of finished that. And then I went on to Reading University to start a PhD in chemistry, actually. And I lived in Reading for 15 years. I did a year of my PhD, which is kind of postgraduate research in chemistry, and I just didn't like it at all. And I hit a brick wall at the time. I'd never thought about what I'd do post becoming a doctor. And I found it really difficult, actually, for a number of years. I had some bereavements in the family, so I had a bit of depression and anxiety, and I found it really difficult to kind of refocus and plot out the path for the rest of my kind of time on this world. So actually, I spent a number of years kind of exploring different jobs in developers, in support. I kind of joined an IT company at the time called Siebel, and I started to kind of, you know, focus a little bit on being a bit more financially comfortable. Money's never been a massive driver for me, but actually having that comfort there was really important. And I started to look for the intellectual challenge and the people and the variety that I wanted out of my career. So if you move on to the next bit, I actually joined British Gas, which may seem a little bit strange that it's an interesting place, but it's a fascinating place to work. And I spent 9 years there, actually. I started off as a solution designer. I did some testing in IT. I was an IT project manager. I then went and became an enterprise architect and designed lots of big systems and put strategy together. And then I hit another bit of a brick wall, to be honest, a career one. My boss at the time, we didn't get on, and he kind of sidelined me and moved me into a position that was actually kind of what I felt at the time was a backwards move into a job that I'd done a number of years earlier. And I was thinking about, do I stay in the company? I started looking around for other jobs because I didn't want to be in that role. But actually, I hung on because I knew there was a really large program of work that I wanted to lead moving forwards. And I had to work really hard improving to the organization and my boss's boss and some of the business people that I could actually lead this program. And it was probably the biggest challenge I've ever done. So I'm really glad I stayed, actually. And by the time I finished at British Gas, I was head of solution architecture there. So I had a whole range of kind of individual contributor roles to leading a big team of people before I joined Salesforce. So I joined Salesforce in 2014, which was about 8 years ago now. I joined in what's called post-sales. So in our organization, we have people that work in sales and pre-sales, and then kind of services people, which is where Jo works as well. So I started off in post-sales doing kind of implementations for Salesforce customers, got a bit of a promotion, worked on my kind of intellectual side of, you know, the kind of things I like intellectually. So I did some certifications about being a technical architect. And that was a real challenge for me as well. I hadn't done any exams for about 10, 15 years, and it took me 3 tries to actually get that certification. So I had to dig deep to kind of, you know, with the motivation side of things to keep going on that. It was really hard. So if I kind of take you on to the next one now, Shirley, it's at this stage in my life, kind of, I'd done a lot of things. I was quite comfortable. I really liked being at Salesforce, and I joined Salesforce because actually I wanted to give back more to the community and things like that. And I actually started working, well, I set up a couple of charities, one in Reading called the Rock Academy Foundation, which is still going and still going strong. And I set it up as a charity and co-founded it with another person. I've been working with it for the last 7 or 8 years. And I also set up a patient support charity My daughter has a rare genetic condition, and there was no information or support around for people with that condition. So I helped with a number of other people kind of set that up as a charity. And it gives you a much different kind of experience to your kind of day-to-day working life. And the thing that I love about those kind of things is you never really know who you're going to meet or what kind of experiences you're going to have. And actually, out of that patient support charity, I now know the CEO of Candy Crush, which is a really strange kind of thing to come about. But if you don't do some of these kind of things and go and explore the variety of things that you could do, either as volunteers or as paid work, you're not going to have that richness and variety. So moving on to the next bit, to take you on to today, I moved into Paul's area and Shirley's area of the organization and started working in sales, or pre-sales as we call it, still as an architect. And I focus a lot more these days on kind of what we've been talking about today, really. So finding the meaning of my life, what gives me purpose and a sense of worth. So, I'm still planning on staying with Salesforce. I love it as an organization. It's fantastic. And if you move to the next slide, Shirley, hopefully that will go through to the next one. I just thought I'd talk about the kind of things that I see in my future and what I would say to my younger self. So I actually wrote a personal plan, like a visualization of back last year, last year, of what I wanted to be and what I wanted to do and what I was thinking about. So it covers a lot of the things. Strangely, Shirley came to me to kind of get involved with this, and I'd done some of this last year as well, just for myself. So you can see some of the things there on the left. I think you're sharing the slides later, aren't you, Shirley? So you can get copies of these. But I'm not very profound, so I thought I'd find some other people's words of wisdom, of things that I've always found useful. Barack Obama: be kind, be useful, and be fearless. I've always wished that I'd take a few more positive and educated risks in my career and done a few more crazy things. That's just something personally that I wish I'd done. Sean Aker, if you go and look up Sean Aker, he's a great author, has written a number of books in this space, and he's a great talker as well. You can find him on TEDx and talks at Google. And he talks about, it's not just about your intelligence that makes you, successful at work. It's about your social support, your optimism, and how you manage things moving forwards. Last couple of things. Find stuff you love. Henry James was an author in the 1800s. There is only one recipe: to care a great deal for the cookery. And I don't know why, but I just find that kind of profound and quite a great statement that I go back to all the time. And the last thing is from a recent book. I think it came out last year. I can't remember the name of the author, but he paints the pictures as well. And it says, "What's the bravest thing you've ever said?" asked the boy. "Help," said the horse. And it's kind of, all of these kind of challenges that you have in your life, never be afraid to ask for help, because there's always people there to help you. So that's a bit about me.
Thank you so much. That was simply fantastic. Thank you so much for your career stories at Salesforce, really demonstrating to us and our Migrant Leaders mentees that there is no fixed way to have a tech career or a technology firm career. Thank you for sharing your journeys and inspiring stories with us. Everyone who has been on the webinar and those who listen afterwards, don't forget to follow Migrant Leaders on social media, as well as our YouTube, where we share our videos and our webinar insights. Thank you so much. And look at the Migrant Leaders website, migrantleaders.org.uk. Thank you.